Now, there is no doubt about it that Bob Iger, the Disney CEO, is the worst of all time, even outperforming Bob Chapek based on what he's been lying about to the shareholders, lying about to the core customer base, and a lot of this, by the way, has to do with divisions out there like Lucasfilm, Marvel Studios, and among others. But even the Disney live-action remakes are really going through a phase of panic right now by the executives, by the board of directors. The biggest one of all being Snow White 2025. There's a lot of recent developments going on with this movie in particular, so let's jump right into this, shall we? This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new, and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. So one thing about Bob Iger is that we know that he has said this before in the past, that he is all about quieting down the noise and shifting away from an agenda, and we talked about this previously, that he is one that likes to flip-flop. He will essentially go back to saying that Disney is not all about an agenda at all, that there will never be any kind of an example of Disney engaging in a culture war, when in reality that's the core definition of Disney right now, is that they really are all about a culture war and really all about engaging in their ideology that they believe in. Now, what's interesting about this has a lot more to do with two actresses, Gal Gadot and Rachel Zegler, and the ongoing drama between the two behind closed doors for Snow White the live action remake, and exactly why it is creating a lot of frustration, a lot of panic between the executives, the board of directors, and most, of course, certainly Bob Iger. Let's get into this. Now, interestingly enough, we already know that Rachel Zegler is the big core of the problem. However, with the Walt Disney Company and CEO Bob Iger spiraling out of control right now due to the backlash from the public over multiple divisions of the company, one monumental development going on currently has more to do with the drama between both Gal and Rachel as the Snow White reshoot plans begin to heat up behind the scenes. The most recent drama that sparked between the two actresses just made the production even harder for the director, writer, and Disney CEO Bob Iger, as now Gal Gadot took a stand up against the Disney heads and is already refusing to engage in more reshoots after Rachel Zegler was making a series of complex demands on how the scenes will be established and what lines of dialogue will be used in a certain way for multiple scenes in the first and third act. However, recently Gal was able to negotiate with the director and the writer after 5 failed test screenings, and was able to convince director Mark Webb to delete the entire ending that focused on Rachel Zegler as Snow White in a very action-packed battle scene between herself and the evil queen that Rachel viewed her as her best acting. Gal, however, is unwilling to reshoot this scene unless she is able to shoot the scenes separately, since there is a severe grudge going on right now between the two. Gal was already able to convince director Mark Webb and the Disney heads to delete an entire scene, get this, that featured Rachel Zegler going on a speech about the patriarchy, where Gal saw this sequence as too agenda-driven by the Walt Disney Company, and her success of convincing Mark Webb to get the Disney heads to pull this scene and delete it altogether is what made the grudge between Gal and Rachel even more severe. Now, the scene had to do with Rachel Snow White addressing a specific kingdom that was ruled by her father, and how a woman should be the rightful one to stand up and take its place to put the patriarchy in the past. This was described as the worst scene of all the test screenings. All 5, of course, of the test screenings featured the scene that failed miserably, and Gal was able to get this scene cut from the film. However, now Rachel is in complete freefall mode, since she believed this was her best acting moment in the film that took roughly 5 whole takes to get the scene down correctly, and was a scene written by Greta Gerwig, who by the way created the Barbie film. Now guys, let me just pause here quick. Now, the thing about this that really is very much shocking is the fact that Disney wanted to go as far to throw a scene in a Snow White film where you have the main character going on about a speech about the patriarchy, about a kingdom that was once ruled by your father. Really makes absolutely no sense. It really has no place in a film like this that is supposedly geared toward younger audiences, as Bob Iger claims, but seemingly they just want to use this as an agenda-driven title. basically is what it boils down to, is what they really want to do. But to make matters worse for this production is that they have already spent millions upon millions of dollars on the marketing campaign for this movie, for starters. They're trying to dial back on their funds for this movie, but at the same exact time, they are spending more funds on upcoming reshoots. Now, the fact that Gal had a large say in a lot of Rachel's scenes getting axed, and how that led to a bigger and more severe grudge between the two actresses, I think is very telling, because it goes to show you that Gal, whatever you want to say about her, I get it, but at least she has a better head on her shoulders than Rachel does. She sees through the Disney nonsense to an extent, and really called out specific scenes that would have definitely torn down her overall career. Now, look, I think at the same exact time, Gal should have known better to not sign up with the Walt Disney Company, to not sign up for a movie like this that obviously engages fully in Bob Iger's agenda, which, by the way, is fully funded by the top three shareholders: BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, the top three over at the Walt Disney Company, that fully believe in ESG and DEI, and how ESG scores, by the way, are very important for a lot of the Disney movies, whether it's live action or animated, with the exception of Inside Out 2. I always have to point that out. But moving onwards, in conclusion, Bob Iger was also pressured to pull away from that scene in particular, the one that featured the patriarchy speech. Another development now is that Gal is absolutely refusing to appear next to Rachel Zegler at the world premiere of Snow White 25. in March of next year, and wants nothing to do with, of course, doing PR next to Zegler in front of cameras. She specifically demanded Disney to keep them separated unless certain things get resolved down the road between themselves, which is looking unlikely right now between Gal and Rachel. This drama between the two is also causing Disney to run multiple emergency meetings just over the Snow White film alone. So the fact that they have to have emergency meetings just for this movie in isolation is a very big problem. It goes to show you how this one movie could very well destroy whatever image is left of the Walt Disney Company. Now, we already know that families and a majority of the general public are already boycotting this movie to a very large degree, and that's very worrisome for Bob Iger. It's very worrisome for the executives. That's why they're very concerned about this film. Now, if I were them, and I've said this before, they have to backdoor this film. And what I mean by that is lock this movie up in a vault, never release it, never let it see the light of day, and have some kind of integrity to just never let this out to the public. And this way, maybe you could correct yourself. Maybe you could just make a new Snow White film from scratch that would actually cater to the 1937 original and not engage in any kind of a culture war or anything like that. Then I think that they could maybe have a shot at making it into a box office success. But so far, this one right now, coming up in March, it's looking to be their biggest disaster in 10 years. So overall, I would like to hear what everyone has to say about everything between Rachel, Gal, the Disney executives, etc., and where you all see this going. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.